Every kitchen knife, axe, and chisel in your house is duller than it should be. And it's not your fault. It's because nobody taught you the method that kept every edge in a 19th century home razor sharp for a lifetime. No power tools, no gadgets. Just this. Hey, welcome back to Yesteryear's Secrets. Somewhere along the way, we traded a skill that every household used to have, sharpening by hand, for electric knife sharpeners that grind away way too much metal and never quite get the job done. Before those existed, every farmhouse kitchen had a whetstone by the back door, and every kid learned to use it before they were teenagers, because a dull knife or a dull axe wasn't just inconvenient, it was actually more dangerous, since you have to push harder on a dull edge, and that's exactly when tools slip. Today I'm going to teach you the actual method, the angles, the stones, the motion that got passed down for generations before anyone owned an electric sharpener. This works on kitchen knives, pocket knives, axes, chisels, even scissors. And once you understand the principle, you'll never look at a store-bought sharpening gadget the same way again. Why machine sharpeners fall short. Quickly, here's the problem with most modern sharpeners. Pull-through sharpeners with carbide wheels are fast, but they scrape metal off in a fixed, aggressive angle that doesn't match your blade's actual geometry. And over time, they wear a knife down to nothing. They also tend to leave a rough, toothy edge, rather than a true, polished one. That rough edge feels sharp for a day or two, and then it's gone. Hand sharpening on a stone does something different. It removes a tiny controlled amount of metal at the exact angle your blade was designed for, and it polishes the edge as it goes, which is what actually makes an edge hold. This is why an old-timer's pocket knife, sharpened by hand every week for 30 years, often has more life left in it than a knife run through an electric sharpener a dozen times. The 3 tools you actually need. You don't need a workshop full of gear. Traditionally, there were 3 things by that back door I mentioned. First, a coarse stone, historically a natural sandstone or novaculite whetstone, though today an inexpensive silicon carbide stone does the same job. This is for fixing damage, chips, rolled edges, or restoring a badly neglected blade. Second, a fine stone, something like a hard Arkansas stone historically, or today, a fine India or water stone. This is your everyday sharpening stone, the one you'd use weekly. Third, a strop, which is just a piece of leather, often an old belt nailed to a board or hung by the door. The strop doesn't remove metal at all. It realigns and polishes the very edge of the blade, which is the final step that turns a sharp knife into a razor-sharp knife. That's it. 3 simple things, most of which a household already had lying around, which is exactly why this method survived for so long. No electricity, no replacement parts, no batteries. Finding the right angle. Here's the part that trips people up most: angle. Every blade has a bevel, the angled section right at the edge, and your job is to match that existing angle exactly while you sharpen, not guess at a new one. The classic trick old-timers used, and one you'll still hear knife sharpeners mention today, is this. Lay the blade flat on the stone, then tilt it up until you feel the bevel meet the stone flush. That's usually somewhere between 15 and 20 degrees on each side for a kitchen knife. A bit steeper, more like 25 to 30 degrees for something like an axe or a hunting knife that needs a tougher edge rather than a razor-fine one. Some people use 2 stacked coins under the spine of the blade as a rough angle guide, since it's a consistent height without needing a protractor. It's a simple trick, but it works, and it's exactly the kind of low-tech solution this whole method is built on. The actual sharpening motion. Once you've got your angle, wet or oil your stone. Depending on the type, natural stones typically use honing oil. Water stones use water. Then draw the blade across the stone in a sweeping motion, heel to tip, as if you're trying to shave a thin slice off the surface of the stone itself. Keep consistent pressure, moderate, not heavy, and always maintain that same angle throughout the stroke. Do this maybe 10 to 15 strokes on one side, then flip the blade and do the same number on the other side. You're trying to raise what's called a burr, a tiny, almost invisible ridge of metal that curls off the edge, and you can actually feel it by very gently running your thumb across, not along the edge. Once you feel that burr along the whole length of the blade, move to your fine stone and repeat the same motion with lighter pressure which refines that rough edge into something much cleaner. This is exactly the same rhythm and feel that a farmer sharpening a scythe or a butcher sharpening a knife would have used. Hundreds of repetitions over a lifetime until it became second nature. Stropping, the step everyone skips. After the fine stone, most people today stop and think they're done. Old-timers didn't. They'd finish on the strop, which removes that leftover burr and polishes the edge to a mirror finish. Draw the blade backward across the leather, edge trailing, never leading, in the same sweeping motion, alternating sides, maybe 20 strokes per side. This step is honestly the biggest difference between an edge that's technically sharp and an edge that's genuinely razor sharp, the kind that can shave hair off your arm or slice through a tomato without any sawing motion at all. Butchers, barbers, and woodworkers all relied on stropping constantly throughout the day, not just after a full sharpening, because a quick strop can restore an edge in under a minute without ever touching a stone. How this changes? Depending on the tool. The core method stays the same across every edge tool, but a few details shift depending on what you're sharpening. Axes and hatchets want a slightly rounder, more convex bevel rather than a flat one, since a convex edge holds up far better to chopping impact without chipping. Old-timers achieved this just by rocking the axe head very slightly through the stroke instead of holding a dead flat angle, which took practice but became automatic over time. Chisels and plane irons, on the other hand, want that flat, precise bevel we talked about earlier, because woodworking depends on a totally consistent edge for clean cuts. Scissors are the odd one out. Each blade only gets sharpened on one side, the outer bevel, while the interface stays completely flat, so you'd sharpen one blade at a time, checking the existing bevel angle carefully before starting. One more note, serrated bread knives don't really follow any of this. Those tiny scalloped edges need a specific tapered rod to get into each individual serration, which is really the one category where old-timers would tell you a dedicated tool is worth having, since a flat stone simply can't reach into the curves. Maintaining tools daily the way they used to. One habit worth adopting from this whole tradition is frequency over intensity. Old-timers didn't wait until a tool was completely dull to sharpen it. A quick pass on the fine stone or a few strokes on the strop, done weekly or even daily for tools in constant use, kept an edge maintained with almost no effort. Compare that to today, where most people wait until a knife can barely cut through a tomato before they think about sharpening at all, which then requires way more aggressive work on the coarse stone to fix. This applies beyond kitchen knives too. Axes, hatchets, garden shears, and chisels all benefit from the same little and often approach. A woodsman heading out for a day of work would give an axe a few strokes before starting. Not because it needed a full sharpening, but because maintaining an edge is far easier than restoring one. A common mistake. One last thing before we wrap up. The most common mistake people make when they first try this isn't the angle, it's impatience. They press hard for 2 or 3 strokes, don't feel a burr, and assume the stone isn't working, so they switch to a coarser grit or press even harder, and end up removing way more metal than necessary. Consistent moderate pressure over more strokes always beats heavy pressure over fewer strokes. Old-timers who did this daily weren't pressing hard, they were being patient and consistent. And that's really the whole secret. So that's the method. Coarse stone for damage, fine stone for the everyday edge, and a leather strop for that final polish. All guided by a consistent angle and a patient, repetitive motion. No batteries, no replacement wheels, just the same 3 tools that sat by countless back doors for generations. If you try this on a knife you thought was a lost cause, I'd love to hear how it turned out. Drop a comment below. And if you want to see this same patience applied to bringing rusted tools back from the dead, check out my last video where I cover the exact rust removal method blacksmiths used before anything like WD-40 existed. Subscribe if you haven't. Next week we're identifying and restoring mystery antique tools nobody recognizes anymore. See you then.